We're here for the 4th annual Empower Mississippi Solutions Summit. We're pleased to welcome now the Speaker of the House of the great state of Mississippi, Speaker Jason White. Good to see you, Mr. Speaker.
Good to be with you, Gerard.
So we got the 4th annual Empower Mississippi Summit. You're very familiar with the organization and its focus on really 3 major policy areas: education, work, and justice. Education. Let's start with that. I know that is a controversial topic in the state of Mississippi, shall we say?
You know what? It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt it is. Yeah.
And you know the goal here is to ultimately enact universal school choice, which essentially means that the state funding associated with the student follows the student to the education setting that their family deems best suited for the student. We've seen this enacted in our neighboring states. You're very familiar with that. We've got limited school choice options in the state of Mississippi, but we seem to struggle getting those expanded, shall we say. What do you think's in store for us in the coming session on this?
Look, well, it does help, first of all, the point that you make about what's going on in our sister states and not just throughout the country, but specifically throughout the South, because we're not the only southern state that maybe has had a story pass when it comes to public education and how we educate our kids from a government standpoint. And so I quickly learned as I became a member of the legislature now 12 years ago, there are no harmless or nonchalant education bills. When a member goes to the well of the House or Senate and it's anything touching on public education or education in general, everybody's antennas go up because everybody's got a stake in that, their constituents. And so when you hear somebody say, oh, this is a harmless bill, it does this, well, everybody's antennas immediately go up. For us, we have really worked hard last session on coming up with a transparent, clear funding formula that is tied to every student, so that every student, there's no reason for us to fund these huge systems when we know exactly with technology how many students we have and what their exact needs are. So the new formula that we were able to pass in 2024, and I'm proud of that work product, and we fought hard. We actually had to vote on that bill 4 times before it finally saw the light of day on the other end of the building. But it finally did, so I think the right product prevailed there. We tied funding to students, not systems, and gave weights for each student from sparsity to special ed, gifted, career tech, those kind of things. Income, yep, low income specifically, and poverty. So now that we're there on that piece, and I tell people we put our money where our mouth is. We funded them at a level higher than they've ever been funded. We fully funded the formula. Our budgeting process through Joint Legislative Budget Committee this fall, we anticipate fully funding that new formula again this year. Now, in just its first 2 years, it will be fully funded. That's as many times as MAP was in 25 years.
That's right, yeah.
It's a historic investment. And when people say we don't invest in our public schools, we spend almost 50 cents of every dollar that Mississippians send to the Capitol in the form of tax dollars. We spend about 50% of it on public education. That's a higher percentage than almost any state in the country of the state revenue or budget. So I say we put our money where our mouth is. It's time to go hand in hand with that and give the people who send that money to Jackson some say in how that education takes place, not just in the form of, I hear folks say, oh, y'all are just looking for a voucher for a private school. That's not true. Most families prefer their local public school in their community, and that research bears that out even in Arizona where they've got true universal school choice. The take rate is less than 10%, but people have that option, and guess what? All boats start to rise a little bit when options become available to everybody, not just folks that either have the financial means or have the zip code that's relates to a good school district. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see several pieces of legislation. I'd love to talk about them. I hope that's what we talk about some today later on when I speak to this group here at this summit, because we're looking for support. A portability piece that simply allows public school students to attend any other public school that will accept them, and their home school district can't hold them back or can't deny that transfer request.
That's the current system. Requires authorization from both, right?
Current system is you have to get released from your home school district before anything can take place.
Yeah.
And they're just, I think school districts look at these kids like customers. They just, they don't release customers. When you're running your computer business, you just didn't voluntarily kick some out because, but at any rate, that shouldn't be controversial, but it is.
Right.
And so we're going to push that. We're going to push a choice piece that allows students in at least DNF, maybe C districts, to have some choices with ESAs that include private, public, whatever, charter, whatever. And we're trying to not come in and make this huge step. The things I'm talking about, I consider baby steps. Other folks think they're just crazy and outlandish. So, we'll see where we get on those. We're looking at the accountability model. A lot of folks are questioning, our current accountability model, and some of it bleeds into the pandemic. We're only showing just very few school districts are DNF. If that's true, I think it's great. But we have parents and we have folks that are a whole lot smarter than me telling me that's just not the case when you look at and drill down into the scores. So we're looking at a dashboard model that actually puts the accountability figures. We do collect some good data, but we don't have it where mom and pop can understand it or a voter can understand it when they're considering school board or other things like that. So we want to get that in a presentable form, and our new superintendent has been very open, and we've had open dialogue with him. And so we like that opportunity to have dialogue. We would like them to be part of the solution and not go kicking and screaming.
Yeah. Well, and you're well aware that our neighboring state of Arkansas enacted sweeping legislation that implements universal school choice, and in fact, it phased in, which is similar to the legislation that we had in the House last year, phasing in
right
up to that point. But they're now on the last leg going into next year where every student in the state will be eligible for an education savings account.
They are.
Why can't they do it? We can't, Mr. Speaker.
I tell you, it's political will. And we did some polling this summer, spent a bunch of money talking to Mississippians about what's important to them. And this poll off the chart. Well, then everybody is attacking our poll, saying, well, of course every parent said they wanted to control their kids' education and have more say in it. But did you tell them it might destroy their local public school? I don't know that this destroys local public schools. And the great and good public schools that are doing a good job have zero.
Nothing to worry about.
Nothing to worry about.
Right.
If somebody's ire is up, it might be because maybe they feel like,
yeah,
hey, people are looking at my product and thinking maybe they can find something better. And you know this. Anytime you can put that into any segment of society, you tend to have improved outcomes.
Yes, absolutely. And, of course, the other issue with the DNF rating or the rating in general is that charter schools can only locate in DNF districts.
Right.
And so that dramatically limits the opportunities for charter schools.
You're going to see legislation in the House this session that opens that up to some extent.
Good.
While also streamlining that whole process as it relates to
talking about the authorizer process.
Yes, the authorizing
it's
process.
Onerous, and that's being
it's almost like it's designed to fail right off the bat. And, we're looking for ways to say yes instead of ways to say no.
Yeah.
And, again, we trust these crazy people we call parents to handle every other aspect of a child's life. Why in the world do we abdicate on this one issue and say the state knows best? We don't. We should provide a quality education. That's part of why we collect taxes. But it's ultimately the parent's decision.
Yeah.
And I think, when you do the right thing, you try to do the right thing. If the policy is good, it eventually makes good politics. And so we're working hard to get it in that direction.
Before we go here, tax reform, of course, work is a major policy category that Empower focuses on, which includes, of course, income tax and just taxation overall. Are we going to see some legislation, you think?
You're going to see legislation in the House that phases out in its entirety the tax on work. Now, we do have core functions of government that do require some taxes be paid. We'll figure that out through sales tax or other means, but we want to get away from punishing and penalizing productivity by taxing your income. As you know, our current tax cut gets us to 4% by 2026. We're a flat tax state.
Right.
Our neighbors are at 3.9 in Arkansas. That number didn't fall out of the sky.
And now Louisiana's at 3.
That's right. So we want to take it to 3 in that first year of 26 after full phase-in of our current tax cut, and then peel it down over 6, 8, 10 years and totally without any future legislation. We want it in place. It's done. Where we can finally say we're on the path to full elimination, not just say we'll consider it next year.
Sounds like we're going to have an active session again.
We're going to have an active session, right?
Mr. Speaker, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Good
sir.
to be here.
Speaker of the House Jason White has been our guest on Middays. The Element Well studio relocated to the Sheraton in Flowood, Mississippi for the Empower Solutions Summit.